TxDOT meeting, or the facing McLaughlin, about the Turkey Peak.
Can I have your attention, please? I'm sorry for the delay, but there's still people coming in. I can't believe how many of y'all showed up. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. I just want to give you a little background for those of y'all that don't know me. Can you hear me all right? Is it a little loud?
No.
Louder? Say that again.
Turn it up.
up.
Okay. I'm not a professional at this, but just to give you a little background, for those of you that don't know me, back last spring when TxDOT proposed those outlandish routes to the west and the east, bypassing Santo and Palo Pinto, I kind of got involved in this deal, and I had a couple of those maps printed off, and I sat on them all summer thinking there's no way they'll do this. There's just no way. And so about 2 weeks before that last feasibility study that TxDOT had down there at the Baptist Church in Santo, I called the field engineer with TxDOT that was in charge of that project, and I asked him, are these two routes still a possibility? And he said, very much so. They're very much so on the table. And so we called that meeting in September at the community center. There's a number of y'all were here or there, but not near as many that are here. But anyway, well then the next week we went down to the church at Santo to see their final proposal was. And just not a week or 10 days after telling me those options were still very much on the table, they were gone. And they reduced it to that center alternate. Of course, all the while they told us that they were 10 to 15 years out on doing this project. And since then, I've had people call and ask this or that, and a number of people in the community came to me and said, you know, that's great that we're not going to have a 70-mile-an-hour 2- and 4-lane highway through here, but what are we going to have for a road? And that was one of the things I had assured people all along back then, that the water district had a road, an alternate route planned, and it was to be Ward Mountain. That's all we'd ever heard for 20-some years. But then I was told by the chairman of the water district that we will not be building a road, and then we were told in a public forum at a luncheon in Mineral Wells the same thing. And I'm not here to bash anybody or anything, because I did talk to this person last night, and they've told me that what has changed is TxDOT was going to either cost share or actually build a road. So TxDOT is now, which most of you know, you've seen Mike Alcott's letter, and I'll just leave it at things have changed. And so the reason we're all here is to find out what are we going to end up with for an alternate route. And so I invited Mike to come and to speak, and so he's going to come up. And Mike, I want to thank you for coming and being here and doing this, and I want to thank Pastor Ford for the use of the church. And but anyway, Mike is going to speak, and then he's going to open the room to questions, and we'll have a couple people with microphones on each side. And what we really want to do here is, for most of you realize that there's a lot of bad blood over this project with the lake and the road, and there's people in Mineral Wells that do not believe we need a road. They don't seem to feel it's important, and there's people out here that feel like we don't need the lake. But I really feel like the majority of us are on the same page, and I also would like to take this second to plead with everybody here and anybody that sees on this video. It's going to be broadcast tomorrow. So let's look at burying the hatchet and try to figure out what's the best way to get done what's best for the majority of the people here. But before I bring Mike up, I want to ask Pastor Ford to deliver the invocation. And thank you all again for coming.
Welcome. My name's Stacy. I'm the pastor here at Lone Camp Baptist Church, and we're glad that you're here tonight. It's always good to see friends and neighbors together. If you would just join me in a prayer, just asking God to be in our time tonight. God, we're so grateful and thankful that you love us. We're thankful for our neighbors, for our friends, for our community. And God, we just ask that you are honored tonight in all that's said, all that's done. God, we want what's best for our community, for each other. And we're just asking you to be in our midst as we discuss that and talk about that. God, we love you. And we just, most of all, are thank you for Jesus. And we ask this in his name. Amen.
Amen.
I wasn't quite done. Will y'all please welcome Representative Mike Alcott.
Thanks for coming out tonight, especially on a Friday night. So let me just start off by asking, how many of y'all did get the letter I sent out a couple of weeks ago? Okay, so most of y'all seen that. So I'm more than happy to kind of briefly go over it. But most importantly, what I'd like to be able to do tonight is simply share with you all what I know about the Turkey Peak project, FM4, and where we stand right now, and simply give you the facts and the accurate story of what's going on. And that was the purpose of the letter. And it was initiated because of some comments that the city councilwoman made in Mineral Wells that actually was lacking some truth about a so-called agenda that I've been apparently for 18 months, even though I've only been in office for 6 weeks, been working against Turkey Peak. And so I thought it was important to share the truth with my constituents. And so that's why I sent out that letter. So I first heard about FM4, I guess it was back in September, and when that's when I first met Casey, when I think it was, did you say it was September, Casey? When was that? Yeah, and so when I heard that there were a lot of people, I guess many of you all, that were upset about what they were going to do with this beautiful FM4, because I think what I heard from a lot of people is that you all moved out here for a reason. It's a beautiful place, and you always enjoyed driving down that road, and we just took that same drive ourselves, and it is really pretty. And that there was rumors they were going to turn it into a wider road, higher speeds, maybe take away some of the natural curves and the beauty of it. And so it was such a big issue, people suggested that I come out there. And it was like roughly 4 months before I was sworn in, but I thought that was something to do since I did not have an opponent in the general election. I thought it was important for me to come out here and find out an issue that really is important to y'all out here. So I came, and I think Marcy, my friend Marcy Galley, was here. And anyway, so that was kind of my first foray into the whole FM4 thing. I then attended, in I believe it was October 25th, a meeting that the Palo County Republican Women had in the old post office in Mineral Wells. I believe it was, I'm sure it was October, but I believe it was around October 25th. And during that meeting, Howard Huffman, actually the director of the water district, made a comment that kind of concerned me, and basically said that TxDOT had gone back on a verbal agreement that they were going to be handing over the road, and that his plan was that, you know, we really needed this water, which we do really need the water, and that this project was important, and we were just going to plow through anyway. And I believe Casey was at that meeting too, and he shared his concern, like, how are you going to simply inundate FM4? That's going to affect a lot of people in this area. And so it was because of that, those comments that I heard from Mr. Huffman, I decided that it was important that I meet with the regional engineer for TxDOT. He's basically the head guy for this. I think TxDOT, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's either 13 or 25 regions in the whole state of Texas. And so he is the one that oversees this part. It's also part of Fort Worth, and his headquarters is in Fort Worth. So I went out and met with him after the general election. So it's maybe roughly the second week of November. And when I met with him, I told him about the comments that I had heard at that meeting, and he said that he'd been in office at that spot for about 2 years, and that there never had been a verbal agreement. He did say that back in 2016, there was he was aware of an unsigned memorandum of understanding between TxDOT and the water district, but it was unsigned. And I don't know whether that's the basis of thinking that eventually it was going to be turned over, but that's when he shared with me a few things. One is that he seemed to think that the water district seemed to think that that the water district was simply saying, we just want you to turn over FM4, and he said that's just not the way it works. That's not how TxDOT works. But probably one of the most striking things that I learned in that conversation, and I mentioned in my letter, that really caught my attention, was the fact that the TxDOT was primarily concerned about you all out here, that if we flooded FM4, you know, if there was a wildfire, when, as you know, there's been a history of wildfires out in this area, he was concerned about emergency service vehicles, not just for fires, but if there was a domestic incident or something like that, and that we needed first responders to be able to get out there, that I believe it was like a 47-minute detour to be able to get to that location. Now, and so that was something that he was very concerned about, and that's why it's one of the apprehensions that he had. So based on that conversation and the comments that I heard at the Republican Women's meeting, I thought that if Turkey Peak was to proceed, we needed to bring all the major stakeholders together. So I called for a meeting in Austin among all the major stakeholders. The engineering firm, the water district, the TxDOT, and Senator Phil King, who was gracious enough to come, and also the Texas Water Development Board was there. So we had a room full of about 20 people, and I thought that was really important to bring everybody together so that so they could work out their differences. And it was very clear at that meeting, it was reinforced by the fact that there was no agreement between TxDOT and the water district. And that actually kind of shocked our state senator as well. He was shocked to hear that had not been worked out until now, because as most of you all in this room probably know, plans for Turkey Peak, this has been going on for a long time. And when you get to a point where you decide to take out a $200 million loan and put that burden on the taxpayers, mostly poor people in Mineral Wells, I think that it would be prudent and certainly responsible to have this worked out before you get to that point. And the city of Mineral Wells increased the water rate on these people, these economically disadvantaged people in Mineral Wells, by 146%, beginning in November of 2023, long before the loan was taken out. The loan was eventually granted this past July, and the loan is still, it's supposed to be up to $200 million. And so before you get a loan, the water district, or excuse me, not the water district, the Texas Water Development Board wants to make sure that you can pay back that loan. And so it makes sense that the water district is at some point going to need to be able to raise those rates, and maybe even right before you take out the loan, to prove that you can, pay back that loan, and that makes sense. But unfortunately, when they raised the rates 146%, almost a year and a half before the loan was taken out, that created a huge burden for these people. And as of to date, they've taken out less than $100 million. And I'm not sure if it's 67 or 97. Where are we at right now?
97 total.
$97 million. So that tells me that those water rates could probably be half of what, well, not half. The rate increase of 146% could maybe be half of that. Not half of the whole rate, because some of that rate is necessary to pay for basic services. And so that's one of the things that I'm very concerned on and I'm working on right now. But anyway, back to that meeting in Austin. One of the things that kind of came from that meeting was that under the questioning of Senator Phil King, like, where do we go from here was his question. And so the water district, I believe it was the attorney for the water district, said that they were in the middle of appraising the cost of what it would be. How much did the water district need to pay TxDOT to take over that 3.4 miles of FM4, to have the right to flood it in order to proceed further. And so they said they were going to continue that, and they would hopefully have that submitted relatively soon. And so that we felt like we were making progress with that. I found out about, roughly, and I can't quote me on this, maybe a week later, the city of Mineral Wells, who, I don't know if you know how it's a very interesting arrangement between the city of Mineral Wells, the city council, and the water district. They actually handle the finances for it, but they decided to, even though this was appropriated in their budget back in August, to spend $150,000 in taxpayer money to hire a lobbyist to come down and make sure that TxDOT hands over that road. And instead of going through Senator Phil King and myself, they decided to simply spend $150,000 to put even more of a burden on those taxpayers. And that's something that is very dear to me, because that's one of the main platforms that I ran on, was looking out for the taxpayer, because I think taxpayers are getting screwed almost every different direction that can be. And I actually have a bill that I've actually introduced in the legislation to actually ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. Not that lobbying will go away, because if you're AT&T, it doesn't affect them all. They can still dish out large amounts of money to come try to influence people like me. But I don't think it's right that your tax dollars go to a taxing entity, and those taxing entities then turn around and hire a lobbyist to come down and lobby many times against you. So whenever we've had bills in the Texas House or the Texas Senate that will effectively lower your tax rate, and maybe in some cases in particular, over the last few sessions when we put caps on how much tax entities can increase their revenue. As y'all may know, one of the ways they've tried to rein in property tax growth is saying, for instance, like school districts cannot increase revenue by more than 2.5% without taxpayer approval. Well, whenever, and I don't want to pick on school districts, basically all tax entities oppose those caps. And so what they do, and many times people like you will go down to Austin at your own expense to lobby and advocate for legislation like that to actually help rein in property tax growth. But at the same time, the tax entities are using your money to go down there and fight that. That just seems wrong, inherently wrong. And as a matter of fact, among Republican primary delegates in the state convention, it usually polls at one of the highest legislative priorities, and it's one of the top ones right now. It's like 95% Republican primary voters saying we need to end taxpayer-funded lobbies, which is one reason I introduced that bill.
Amen.
But anyway, getting back to the story. So anyway, the latest update is they have a lobbyist, and actually I know the lobbyist. I like the guy a lot, and he's working to try to help facilitate the building for the water district to eventually turn over that, for the TxDOT to hand over that road to the water district so they can flood it and begin construction and flood it. One of the things that just came out yesterday, and I don't know, Marcy, do you have that copy of that letter? We weren't expecting this many people. How many copies do we have?
45.
Oh, just 45. Okay. I think there's a few more people than 45 in here. So, but anyway, we'll try to figure out a way to make that available to you all. But in essence, the water district did eventually get around to submitting an appraisal to TxDOT, basically saying this is how much we're willing to give to you to have the rights to flood FM4. And they decided that their determination on this appraisal was that they believed that $3.4 million of highway road was worth $500,000. And TxDOT actually released a letter that came out yesterday. It was emailed to the water district. I believe it was also mailed. I got a copy of it, I think late last night. I wanted to share that with you, but I'll just basically convey the main points, but you're welcome to get copies. And anyone that wants copies, I'll make sure that you get a copy. But basically it said that one of the major mistakes they made, well, first of all, in order to the feasibility study that TxDOT has done to actually reroute FM4 down the road, they're estimating, it's a rough estimate, is about $150 million. But they said that one of the problems in that appraisal was not that it was way off by like a number of zeros, but that wasn't in the letter. But it was the fact that they only appraised the land along that $3.4 million road. They did not appraise the cost of actually building $3.4 million of actually highway road. And so they basically said, no, we want to continue to work with you. We need to work something out, but no, this is not sufficient. So anyway, so the exact words of the district engineer on the phone to me about 2 hours ago is that I said, well, what kind of update can I give all these nice people that are getting ready to come out because they're very concerned? But he said, we are still at an impasse. And that's where we are right now. And so that's the status. I have heard, I asked him, I said, do you know what the water district's plan is? And this did come out in the meeting in Austin to actually, if they do flood the road, what is your all's route going to be to get to your houses or whatever? Maybe that depends on where you live. But they said that they still plan on using Ward Mountain Road as that detour. One of my concerns and the concerns of TxDOT about that. TxDOT, by the way, TxDOT said they're not about to upgrade. They looked into upgrading Ward Mountain Road as a potential route or reroute of FM4, but they said because of the turns and the steep inclines, they said it could not be upgraded to their standards, and so they were not willing to go down that road. And it was widely agreed upon in that meeting in Austin that Ward Mountain Road, and I'm assuming, is there anyone in here that has not driven Ward Mountain Road? Okay, I've driven it once. Casey was nice enough to take me on that road. That road ain't in very good shape right now. And so imagine what happens when you've got 18-wheelers and these other trucks that are going to be going down Ward Mountain Road. It's going to be in a lot worse condition, not just because that it's not that wide, but the fact that whenever you have, as many of y'all probably know, I'm no engineer, but when you have windy roads and you've got a lot of weight on those roads, that's going to drastically, increase how fast those roads tend to degrade. And so the question becomes, if that road is the road that's going to be used by emergency emergency vehicles or by you all, who's going to pay for the upkeep of that road? And I don't know, is Judge Long, he's here somewhere. Would you like to come up for a minute and maybe address that issue? Because Judge Shane Long is the county judge, y'all probably know, here in Palo Pinto County, and his commissioner's court would be responsible, well, we would think, for maintaining Ward Mountain Road. And so I asked if he would join me tonight, so when they asked me to come here to see, give his honest opinion on what his assessment of Ward Mountain Road as an alternative.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. Obviously, Ward Mountain Road is a county road, and y'all are all county citizens. You see how our roads are. It just takes a lot of money to maintain and upkeep roads. I don't believe the county would be able to maintain Ward Mountain Road in any kind of shape that would even begin to look like like a state, that the state can maintain. But I would say the commissioners, I believe, would certainly do all we can to provide emergency access. If Ward Mountain Road becomes the option, well, you have to have an option. And then we would certainly, at no cost to the county, would expect either the Water District or TxDOT, which I don't think it's going to be TxDOT because it's not a state highway, to put Ward Mountain Road in a condition that would serve as a temporary, bypass until, TxDOT can figure out what they're going to do with Ford. But as far as the county paying for upgrading Ward Mountain Road to maintain the type of traffic that potentially be on it, we just don't have the funds to do that. And so, if that answers your question there, we're not opposed to working with TxDOT or with the Water District, to utilize Ward Mountain Road. That's we're not stopping that, but at the same time, it's just not right to expect the county to just take over a gap in a state highway. So I think that's where the commissioners are going to be. And let me say, these are my comments and my opinions. I can't obligate the commissioners court to anything in my comments here tonight, because that has to be addressed by the entire court before I can commit to a comment to it. But it's definitely an issue, and I'd ask the question. We did do had our emergency management coordinator and also the county fire chief to actually drive Ford and Ward Mountain Road to see what that time difference looks like. And they drove that in a pumper and also in a command vehicle. And so I don't know where the 40-something minute delay comes in, but it's not from Ward Mountain Road and Ford up till Ward Mountain Road comes back on Ford. That's not a 40-something minute change in emergency response.
We might have been referring toward the feasibility study where that route was going to go.
And that's very possible.
I'm not sure though.
That could have been.
7 minutes, Judge.
7.
7 minutes.
Yes, please.
I might the week's worth of FM4 traffic on that Ward Mountain Road, that's probably worth 20 minutes.
Well, after it deteriorates to nothing, yeah, absolutely.
Prior to deterioration to 7 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, well, thank you. And I'll be glad to.
Why don't you stay?
Yeah, I will. Yes, sir.
So, anyway, I think that's about all I wanted to share, but that's just give you an update of where we are. I wanted to, would love the opportunity to answer questions, and I think some of these questions may be directed to you. That's why I thought maybe you want to stay up here. And is the commissioner here? Is the precinct commissioner, that if he wants to answer questions too? But there's a lot of people here, and my experience has been there's going to probably be quite a few questions. And just keep in mind that in order for us to get, so we're not here all night, if you've got a question, just make it relatively quick, and I'll try to give a quick response, and I think the judge will too. Just so we can have a chance to get around to as many people as we can.
Mr. Alcott.
Yes.
My name is James Cobb. On March 3rd of this year, I called your office to voice my concerns about the loss of our local volunteer fire department, combined with the loss of use of FM4. And my concerns are actually coming to pass, actually. I don't know if you're aware, but the Lone Camp Volunteer Fire Department was recently disbanded, and by unanimous vote from the Emergency Services District Number 1 on the evening of Thursday, March 13th. Effective immediately as of that date, the Lone Camp Volunteer Fire Department ceased to exist. We no longer be tooled out to respond to any emergencies in the district lines, and maps were already redrawn. My home would now be the responsibility of the Santo Volunteer Fire Department to respond in the event of any emergency. The Lone Camp Fire Department is currently only 3.6 miles from my home. The Santo Fire Department, on a good day utilizing FM4, is a 16-minute drive from my home. When the Mineral Wells Water District floods FM4, that will turn into about a 16-minute drive from Santo Fire Department to respond to an emergency. Then it becomes a 20-plus minute drive to respond to an emergency here. This response time is solely based on the firefighters just actually standing there, fully dressed, ready to jump into a truck immediately. This also doesn't take into consideration the deterioration of Ward Mountain Road that will occur due to the increased traffic. I currently cannot accept this complete lack of concern for the community's well-being and welfare of the Mineral Wells Water District and the emergency services in District 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Ron, do you want to comment about that? Do you know any updates on what the best solution is for that?
I do not know if 4 is, removed because of the dam. I don't know of any other route available other than Ward Mountain Road. And that's...
Do you mind coming up to me afterwards, or coming up to Marcy and giving me your information? And I'd like to hear, because I had not heard about that yet. And thank you for your phone call. But if you could get that information, and we could try to look into that for you.
My name is John Hoover. My voice is loud. I may not even need this. I live at 620 Hoover Road. Road's named Hoover for my father. My father built a tadpole that was bulldozed the other day. So let's just say my roots are set here for quite a while. My family moved here in the 1940s, and the very canyon down there that is going to be flooded, they owned both sides of it at that time. You know, my question is this. The part that I think we'd be remiss not addressing. I worked for the county precinct when I was in high school. I've shoveled a ton of asphalt on Ward Mountain Road back in the day when it was a crappy road then. There's not a softer base road in the county. We all know that. It's going to mash all to pieces. The part that hasn't been pointed out that troubles me is Highway 4 is going to be inundated by 3.4 miles of road or whatever we're saying. If you'll look at where the dam's going, folks, it also is crossing Ward Mountain Road and taking out the tail end of Ward Mountain Road. Ward Mountain Road, as it exists, is not a route around the lake unless I'm missing something. There's a stretch of Ward Mountain Road that will go through the dam that's going to be built. So no matter what happens here, even if we're considering Ward Mountain Road as a passage, there's some kind of reroute going on that I'm missing, or it's going to run through the very construction. So I see 2 roads getting cut off by construction, not one. I'm just curious if I'm missing something or if there's an explanation there.
I don't know if this is the explanation, but I do know that, Marcy may know this, but I think there's some, in the project plan for Turkey Peak, there is supposed to be some road work, either on the dam or around the dam, that maybe addresses that. Maybe there's a slight detour of Ward Mountain Road before it gets to there. That might be, and that might even be funded. They may already have the money for that, because there is some money, I think it might be $6 million, something like that. Where'd Marcy go?
She's arguing with
I'm
people.
arguing with these 2 lovely ladies over here.
Okay. Do you know, Marcy, isn't there something in the Turkey Peak project loan that includes road work around the dam? Okay, so you know that?
Yes.
Half to 3/4 mile.
Is that what's going to address this man's concern? Okay, so
It's the portion that interlocks with the dam, as I've been told. And that's pretty much where the...
So, I'm sorry, what? Sure.
It's my understanding, talking to Mr. Huffman back in the summer, that there's about a half to 3/4 mile of Ward Mountain Road from the bottom up that interlocks with the dam, and they are having to revamp it because they're pretty much going to cut it out. As I understand it, in order to build the dam and tie the dam into the Ward Mountain itself. So I don't know how that plays out. If that happens before or after FM4.
But so it sounds like, to answer your question, and it's a really good question, that it's not only is it's planned for, my understanding is it probably is, it's already been funded. I mean, it's part of the loan process, so that portion of it should not be delayed. The big impasse is what to do with FM4. You know, at what point can it be inundated? There has to be an agreement between TxDOT and the water district before that can happen. Yes, sir.
So, I want to correct Mr. Cobb just a little bit. Lone Camp Volunteer Fire Department is not technically shut down. They still exist as an entity. That being said, ESD1 is not funding them, and the county is not dispatching calls to Lone Camp Volunteer Fire Department. So in that matter, they don't exist as a fire department. Does that make sense? But as a whole, they still exist. And I haven't heard from ESD1 to hear what all they're going to be required to do to be allowed to start accepting calls and be funded again. That's a different conversation for a different meeting, okay? All of that being said, Lone Camp Volunteer Fire Department also responds to your EMS and your medical calls as a first responder organization, and they are still able to do that. But your ambulance still comes from Gordon or from Santo, which means it's still a 12 to 15 minute response time. And if you're in a true medical emergency, especially if they shut down FM4, that's life or death. A house can be replaced. A $200,000 horse can be replaced. My father-in-law cannot be replaced. So while I'm worried about the fire and my house burning down, I am more worried about the emergency medical services. Because I am a paramedic and I know what that takes. That being said, and seeing the way this is going, I'm don't have a question, I have a quick education for y'all, and y'all need to look into this. We have a medical helicopter that will pick people up if they're having a severe medical emergency or a trauma called AirEvac. They're based out of Mineral Wells, and I'm not selling their plan. They're just there. But for $200 a year, you and every person that lives in your family, if you have to take a helicopter ride, it's no cost to you. So you need to look into that. And if I get there as a paramedic and you're having a stroke, you're having a heart attack, your tractor rolls over, you've got some kind of poisoning, all number of things. I can't tell you how many people we fly out of Santo Lone Camp area every month. We probably fly 2 or 3 people a month sometimes out of the Santo Lone Camp response area. So I would highly recommend, because a helicopter ride for a medical issue is $70,000.
They're still going to be able to land at the...
Yes, they'll still be able to land.
My name is Mike Foltz. I have a question that I quite don't have settled in my mind. It sounds like there's a disconnect between the negotiation to shut down 4 and a replacement for 4. I don't understand that there is a insured replacement for 4 without shutdown.
There is.
Am I reading you right?
So the water district in the Austin meeting, Mr. Huffman said that it was their plans to utilize Ward Mountain Road. And one reason why I mentioned the fire trucks, I don't know if that's the word I used, but and I think that's a reason why Mr. Salazar from the TxDOT was more concerned about that, and he didn't mention the ambulance, was the fact that Mr. Huffman, and he's probably right about this, Ward Mountain Road could probably still handle ambulances. But when you talk about big fire trucks, that's where he was very nervous about that. So, yes, there is no, I don't feel like there is a clear solution yet, because the biggest problem for me, well, the water district, they're saying they're using Ward Mountain Road because they're wanting to start right away. The TxDOT saying realistically, this earliest they can get a reroute of a typical TxDOT approved reroute is 7 years from now. And so, and it's going to be, and right now it's roughly, and this is very rough according to him, $150 million. You can imagine what it's going to be down the road. My biggest concern right now is who's going to pay for using Ward Mountain Road. That's the big problem. Where's the money going to come from if Ward Mountain Road is the intended reroute for the water district until TxDOT can finish an FM4 reroute, then we've got a problem.
So the question I have is, can the closure of 4 be delayed until people get their act together, whether it's commissioners, Mineral Wells, or whoever, to replace 4? Don't delete 4 until you have a replacement. What you're telling me,
I don't think you have to worry about that, because right now it's they can't flood 4 right now. They don't have the rights to flood 4.
And they don't have the rights to flood 4 because they don't own the land that 4 runs on.
I'm sorry, say it again.
They don't have the rights to the land.
That's correct. That's what that negotiation
that TxDOT owns.
That's correct. That's a good point. So that's here's the deal. TxDOT owns the rights to FM4, that 3.4 miles. And so no entity has a right to go in and say, we're going to flood your road, because they don't own the road. And so that's why there's negotiation going on to try to purchase the road. But as of right now, there's a huge discrepancy between, what they, basically, and I'll just repeat myself real quickly, is that the water district is only assessing what they think that land value is. And I'm assuming maybe 3.4 miles, the area they're talking about there, maybe it is only worth $500,000. But the road is worth a lot more money than that. And so they failed to include the cost of the road, because that is part of the equation, because they own the rights to the road too. So that's the impasse they have. I really don't think you need to worry about them flooding FM4 until it is worked out. So right now, that is the impasse, that is a stalemate, is that there is no agreement between the Water District and TxDOT. And so Turkey Peak cannot proceed until that is worked out. That's the best, my understanding. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, someone in the back.
I can get up there on the front and take your place if you want.
Okay. Let him go first and we'll come to you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mike, I'm Norman Marsden, and I'd like to thank you for telling all these people that you was courteous enough to call me back. I tell everybody I'm 80 years old, and I'm probably the only one that's born and raised in 7 miles of here. Everybody else moved in. If they hadn't moved in, we wouldn't be having this problem, would we?
Well, I hate to break the news, there's a couple of good friends of mine from California that are just a couple of rows in front of me. We're great California principles.
We've got several issues. Limit this to 4 questions, okay? Farm Road 4 is a disaster. Forget about the lake. The road needs to be moved, straightened out, and make a safe place to ride to Santo. It's terrible. Pulling a trailer, you drop off holes, there's going to be people get killed down there, regardless of the lake. A lot of these people here are interested in the water. Now, the lake will go dry. It lacked 7, 8 years ago, like 3 weeks going dry. It's going to go dry, and all these people are not going to have water. So the issue is to not have water at your house or to have a road. We got 2 issues, and I hope I didn't vote for you.
That's okay, because that gives me a chance to convert you.
But I will vote for you if you can help us get this mess straightened out.
I'm not going to promise you that I can because I don't have the power to actually, I mean, all I can do is try to be a facilitator, and that's what I tried to do back in January. It's basically bringing the groups together. I don't have the authority of the Water District to spend their money, and I don't have the authority of TxDOT to accept offers, especially when they're very, very low offers. So I don't have that ability.
Is there a plan B? Because I've heard nothing of anything that's going to be worked out anytime soon.
So when you
What's
say
plan B?
When you say plan B, are you referring to something other than Turkey Peak or something other than FM4?
The road.
All of the above, young man.
Yes, I ain't so young. Especially after 8 weeks in Austin.
What I'm hearing.
Give you this mic?
No. By the way, my name is Rick, and Jennifer, I've been on that helicopter, it's fantastic. All right, so, yeah, I had to go to the hospital. So anyways, all I've heard tonight is that, okay, there's an issue with the water, right? They don't know what they're doing. Then at the same time, TxDOT, they're like, we're not going to do anything until they get that thing figured out and we can actually work this through. This is a stalemate that continues. You also said, if I heard you correctly, shovel's not going in the ground or something's not going to be flooded for another 7 years or so. So what I'm asking is...
Hold on. I mean, the shovel's not, you mean...
This is not going to be worked out for another 7 years, is what I thought I heard you say.
Yes, but, well, that's the reroute. I mean, there's shoveling 2 different things. We're shoveling, like, the lake, or shoveling...
When I say shovel on the ground, that's my terminology of actually somebody working to get this done on the ground, making it work. Okay? So, sorry for the delay. That being said, is there a plan B if you can't with the water and the roads? We live right next to Ward Mountain Road. And yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't work, right? And what these guys said too about going down 4 with the turns and whatnot is absolutely beautiful. But yet, with all the extra traffic you guys are looking to do, everything everybody said in here is absolutely correct. So, what's plan B? Because I'm not hearing how plan A is working out. What are the options?
I got plan B.
Well, my name is the Turkey Peak Reservoir in 1978. Yes, sir. That's how much we got done.
Yeah.
now, so I told a guy a few years ago, he was crying about the beautiful drive and all that stuff. I said, well, when they get that lake built, I'll buy a pontoon boat and take you down through there and let you look at those beautiful mountains. But anyhow, the other thing is, there's not if you heard anything about a private concern trying to take over the project and
I have not heard that. I'm not saying it's not true, but I have not heard that.
it's like a toll road, you know, could we get a Japanese firm to build a toll road on the
Well, I'm not going to be helping with that because I'm no fan of toll roads. I'm a big opponent of toll roads. I don't even take toll roads. Many of the toll roads in North Texas are owned by Spanish companies.
I'll give it to you. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir. Now, Norman, my guess is if I can get your vote, I might be able to get another 50 votes in here.
So, I'm Tim Hopkins. My question is, so since 2008, TxDOT, the county, and the water district have discussed Ward Mountain Road. That has always been in discussion. Everything was built around using Ward Mountain Road. Was that all in bad faith by TxDOT?
I have no idea. That wasn't involved.
Well, then what does TxDOT say about that? All the communications with Precinct 4 Commissioner Fryer, the water district, have been Ward Mountain Road. All of a sudden, at the end of 2024, that doesn't work anymore. Why?
Okay, Mr. Hopkins, let me start off by saying, let's just assume that it's going to be Ward Mountain Road. Do you understand that FM4 still cannot be flooded until the water district owns the rights to FM4? Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the issue at hand right now. But the second issue at hand, Mr. Hopkins, and I know who you are, but the second issue at hand is the fact that who's going to pay to upkeep? Have you heard about these so-called discussions that have been going on for 16 years? Has anyone determined who's going to pay for it? Is that since it's been so brilliantly planned?
Well, the communication has been that it was going to be taken over as incorporated into 4.
Are there any signed documents?
I haven't seen evidence of that. I mean, and anyone else have questions? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Well, here's that question. The first part is it customary, and I'm not trying to be smart, I'm sincerely wondering, is it customary in government to get a $200 loan and not have all these things worked out ahead of time?
$200 million.
The second part of the question.
No, that's a great question, and no, it's not customary.
Here's my second part of the question. If for some reason another 10 years goes by and this isn't done, at what point does the money have to be returned to the state?
Yes.
So this came up in the Austin meeting, and it's a lot less than 10 years. If this doesn't get worked out relatively soon, that may have to happen.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm the state representative. I'm not part of the water district. I'm not part of TxDOT. One of the things that I would like, that I think the water district should be doing, is applying for, could I be around the clock, is that, and I actually had a conversation with Governor Abbott about this about 2 weeks ago, is that he said one of the first things we need to do when we start talking about the serious critical issue of water in Texas is the first thing, and the easiest thing to do, and the least expensive thing to do, is to prevent the loss of water. And right now, in the city of Mineral Wells, they're losing lots and lots of water. And it's understandable. I mean, these pipes underground,
the old Army base. They still have to run water through those pipes, and they lose lots of water. So you could actually, by spending a lot less money, although it's not cheap, now this is really like hindsight now, but that's one thing that I wish they would be looking into, is a way to actually repair and replace the pipes, because that's where a lot of water is being lost. And then there wouldn't be, eventually there may be a need for a big new reservoir. And not to say there's not right now, but to say that if you could actually cut down on, you know, sometimes people think up to 40 to 50% of the water could be lost. I don't know, someone said that, but I don't know how accurate it is. You can imagine that would definitely extend the time at which it becomes a more critical issue. So, I don't know, you were talking about Plan B back there, and if you were talking about, you know, if for some reason Turkey Peak does not go through, that's something that I'm going to do what I can do to help fight for, is start off by replacing those pipes. The water treatment plant at Hilltop is 60 years old. It's in horrible condition. I have very good word from engineers that have been there, and that to me is the common sense place to start. Is why are we putting money to, because we can have this big new reservoir and have all this new water, but if you don't have a water treatment plant to treat it, what good does it do? And so that's something that I feel like should have been the top priority, is that. Although I do recognize the fact, the longer, if we're going to do something like Turkey Peak, the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to be. But
okay, this gentleman's been looked over a bunch of times.
Yeah, I'm Keith Hoster. I live on Lake Palo Pinto, and I'm confused. We started off, and I was happy. It said that TxDOT would not give up Highway 4 unless the plan was made out for the emergency use of Highway 4, another route around it. Then it moves into, it apparently just got taken care of, talked about just a few days ago. The water district just buying Highway 4. Well, would the TxDOT sell Highway 4 just for money without having a plan for the emergency use of Highway 4 or another alternative? Ward Mountain Road. I'm saying it sounds like the highway department might just take a bunch of money from the water district, and the water district owns it, and so then they can do whatever they want then, is what it sounds like to me, is what you were talking about at the end.
Okay. So this is the letter that TxDOT responded to. The Texas Department of Transportation has reviewed the Memorandum of Understanding proposed by Palo Pinto County Municipal Water District Number 1 and the appraisal of the property underlying FM4, the state of Texas asset managed by TxDOT. While we appreciate the attempt to continue working together on this matter, we also notice that neither the Memorandum of Understanding nor the appraisal address the replacement or relocation of FM4. This corridor is an active roadway on the state highway system, and replacement or relocation of this state asset is a vital factor in TxDOT being able to advance any potential future partnership with respect to this matter. As discussed on several occasions, FM4 is an important component of the state highway system, facilitating the transport of people and goods across Texas and through Palo Pinto County. Because the district has not addressed the relocation of FM4, nor the associated expenses of such a potential relocation, TxDOT respectfully declines the district's offer to purchase the property underlying FM4 as currently proposed. We remain willing to work with the district to reach a resolution that addresses both the district's need for the property and TxDOT's need to maintain the state highway system. And so that's where we're at right now. I'm not sure, does that kind of answer your question?
No, it didn't, because it gave them an out. It's part of it. It doesn't say, if you don't have a plan for Highway 4 for the emergency use of vehicles, that we won't accept a bunch of money and you handle it. I mean, the wording wasn't exact. It says it gave them an out there towards the middle. But how do they get?
Well, I don't. I'm not a spokesman for TxDOT, but if I had to speculate, they simply, one of their main problems is they don't think 3.4 miles of state highway is worth only $500,000.
So what is it?
Because and so to kind of address your question, they look at this through the prism of the fact that their job is to maintain highways in Texas. And part of their highway is getting ready to be inundated with water. And so they believe in order to actually come up with an alternative route to provide transportation needs for you all, they need to be compensated for 3.4 miles that can be utilized to facilitate the construction of another FM4, not for rerouting, or not rerouting, but using Ward Mountain Road. Ward Mountain Road is a solution by the Water District. It's not a solution by TxDOT. They looked into it to see if they could use it and actually turn it into FM4, but they said because of engineering reasons, they couldn't do it. Does that make sense? So their job is not to come up with a solution of a county road. Their job is to simply be compensated for the road they're now being denied and use that money to go towards funding a FM4-like road down the road. That's, like I said, I don't work for TxDOT. That's just my best understanding. So I'm just trying to share that with you.
Question right here is, okay, this is a business that they're gonna make money from. If you're gonna go to the bank and start a business, you gotta have a business plan and it better make sense or you're not gonna go anywhere. There's no feasibility study that's been submitted on this project, so nobody knows how to answer anything without that feasibility study submitted by qualified personnel.
Are you talking about the feasibility study for the FM4 reroute?
Yes. The project.
Which, the Turkey Peak project or
Yes.
FM4 reroute?
The Turkey Peak project.
All of it.
The project, the dam to create more water to be sold to everybody at a higher price. There's been no feasibility study to prove that that project will work, what's it gonna cost, what's it gonna impact, who's it gonna affect. Otherwise, you just say, I gotta have the money, and it ain't gonna happen.
Next. Representative Alcott, Dave Jones, I live on Lake Palapino. Kind of the elephant in the room is who's ever going to pay for this, right? It's the taxpayers of Mineral Wells and the taxpayers of all the wholesalers. Okay, and Governor Abbott has made it very clear that these are loans, they're not grants. Okay? I want to give this to your staff, but I'm referencing the Army Corps of Engineers evaluation and decision document that came out from the Corps of Engineers when they approved the 404 permit. On figure 4, page 15, the largest, this is what the reservoir was planned on. That's what the application was to the Texas Water Development Board. The district said the largest consumer of the water that we need to provide for is the Brazos Electric Power Corporation. They said it takes 4,000 acre feet. That's what the requirement is. They submitted the application. That is false. They never had a contract for 4,000 acre feet. The contract states, and I have the letter, 1,000 acre feet. For people that don't know, 1 acre feet of water is 325,850,000 gallons. Okay? So if they only need 3,000 acre feet of water, that equates to 977 million gallons of water that's not needed for the project. Now, let's just take 2 examples and I have a couple questions. I list all the wholesalers in here. One of them is Parker County Sud. Their contract is worth 294 acre feet. What did they actually use last year? They used 3 acre feet. Lake Palapino's contract is 250 acre feet. They used 136 acre feet. So if we just take those 3 numbers alone, we're over 1 billion. Over 1 billion gallons of water that was not made public or not told to the Corps of Engineers, and they submitted the loan and they were given money on a loan application that's not accurate. Now, what would happen to me or anybody in this room on a business loan that they put inaccurate figures for a loan? Wouldn't be good, okay? So my point is this. The people in Mineral Wells 70% of them are economically disadvantaged. That's not my words, that's their words, okay? They raised 146% water rates, the highest in the state. If they don't need the water. The applications are incorrect. The water, to me, it's fraud, okay? If I put a loan application and put those type of numbers and they're not needed, there never was a contract. We're talking billions. And by the way, FYI, you're talking about water loss. In the channel, the water's pushed 26 miles to the power plant. Does anybody know how much water is lost per year in that channel? Straight from HDR reports, 700 million gallons. 700 million gallons, no pipelines ever been. So we start adding up the numbers, of the actual water used, we're in 2, 3, 4 billion gallons of water. So my point is, the taxpayers are going to be on the hook for this, okay? And they're paying for something that, if you've been in a casket the last 2 months, you're seeing what's happening in Washington with Doge, right? Billions and billions and billions and billions, okay? What I'm saying is the water district was not honest on these applications. The leadership needs to be changed, and I think it's complete incompetency, in my opinion, because this is wrong. It's wrong. Thank you.
So, do we know who would pay for this road?
Which road are you talking about?
The reroute. Like, okay, so how I understand it, there's a 404 permit, right? Number 1 was the road, that's number 1. Number 2 is the bridge, number 3 is the dam, and then I can't remember number 4 anymore. So, but road's supposed to go first. Well, they bypassed the road part, and now they have a certain amount of money, but that doesn't, the road is not included in that money. So, we poor people with Mineral Wells who've been charged 146% rate increase are already, they're overly burdened and overly taxed. Who is going to pay for this road? There's no money, like, is Governor Abbott, who wants zillions of water, gallons of water, right? Is he gonna chunk a check down here and say, oh, well, we'll help you out? How is this gonna go? I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think the water district, like I said, their only expense in this is simply to pay TxDOT what that 3.4 miles of road is, and TxDOT, I assume, would just bank that, and then, I don't know this for certain, and this is why I wish the TxDOT was, he's with his family on vacation, and but he's been an awesome source of information. But my understanding is that's something that the state legislature, eventually would be asked to, if I'm still in office, that's something I'd probably requesting, to get that money, and who knows how much it's going to be then. But I don't think that anyone believes for a second that the water district is going to be paying for that reroute. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure. That reroute is actually a lot longer, would have to be a lot longer than 3.4 miles too. So, so I don't know exactly.
So
I don't know exactly how that.
Because so here we have this $200 million loan, and now the road is estimated at $150 million, right? The math doesn't. It's beyond my brain. How are we going to, afford all this?
Right, and the $200 million loan, as far as I know, and Marcy, you may know more about this. It included some money for that little small section of Ward Mountain Road the gentleman was talking about. Right. And but as far as I know, it contained no money to compensate TxDOT. Did you ever see anything, Marcy, in that? No. Yeah. So I don't know. When they came up with that loan application, it's hard for me to believe that they wouldn't realize they were going to have to pay TxDOT something for it. And maybe they realized that if they did, it was going to be a lot too much money and they wouldn't be able to get the loan. I don't know the answer to that. But it is the reason why we have the impasse right now.
Question here.
Me? Thank you, Andrew Watson, San Antonio. I guess my question is more for the commissioners and the judge.
Yes, absolutely.
Or I saw Mr. Huffman here. In the article for the Weatherford Democrat, asking Mr. Fryer about Ward Mountain, and using that, what is the county's stance on if the district does upgrade this road in the meantime until TxDOT figures out what kind of reroute we're looking at? What is going to be the agreement with that? Is the district going to purchase that, the easements of that? They're going to maintain it, upgrade it? We haven't heard anything about what those discussions have been between the county and the district.
Jeff Fryer, County Commissioner in Santo area. Andy, we haven't really been in discussions on who's going to pay for this up there, for the upgrades, but as far as the rest of the commissioners and the court, I think we're all looking forward to the district to take on that burden of upgrading this road.
What's another handshake agreement?
Is it a handshake agreement? No, because the county can't afford to upgrade that road.
I get it, but my question is that going to be deeded to the district, or is county going to continue to control Ward Mountain Road and the district just voluntarily upgrade it?
Well, that's where we haven't had them discussions, so I really can't give you that answer, Andy.
Mr. Huffman, like to comment? I see you.
What is the holdup? Because we started off with TxDOT and all this, and now it's being dropped on the county. So.
But I thought Ward Mountain Road was planned.
It is, but they were that was supposed to have been a transition from the TxDOT road to the county. And then the county gives TxDOT Ward Mountain Road, or the state Ward Mountain Road. That's what's been said in the past. At all these meetings, I hear all this.
Wishful thinking.
Ma'am?
That was just discussion.
Yes, ma'am. Over the last, I've been in office 18 years. Yes, ma'am. I had one regional manager tell me no. The second one said, yes, the state will get involved with this. And then this one says no. So yes. And no, there was no memorandum signed, but there was intent. Now, who dropped the ball, state or water district? I cannot give you that answer. But I have been at all these meetings.
Question?
I have a question. My question is, you were talking about the impasse and this getting paid for the road, the TxDOT getting paid for that 3.4 miles. Let's say they come to an agreement with just that one thing. The TxDOT gets their money, but they come to agreement. Does that mean the project can start? Or what's, because all I'm hearing is that one thing is stopping everything. Because then we still won't have a great road reroute. We won't have solutions. So I'm concerned that the one impasse you're talking about, if they come through with the money, what's going to happen? Is it going to start, construction start right after that?
I would assume so. If TxDOT does come in agreement with the water district and they're happy with what they're given, as far as I know, then they'll start the construction.
Without a road, without a good road alternate.
That seems to be Howard Huffman's position, yes, sir.
But were they not supposed to follow a scope of work to get the loan?
I'm sorry, say
Were
that
they
again?
not supposed to follow a sequence of scope of work to get the loan?
Yes.
And the number one thing was the road.
Yes.
So how do they now get to pick and choose what they want to start on
Yes.
the project
That's-
with the money they got the loan for?
That's a great question. You'll have to ask the water district.
Yeah, I'd love to. I wish they were here.
They are.
They are.
They are.
Then get up here and speak. On Facebook, get up here and speak.
Get up here and speak.
I have two questions. Is the Turkey Peak project, can y'all hear me? Is the Turkey Peak project still under a cease and desist order?
I'll let Mr. Huffman answer that.
And how long is the duration of that until there's a road solution that is written?
So, Representative Lockhart, thank you for coming tonight. I know y'all were very busy this week in session. Casey, thank you. Okay, where would you like me to start?
I'd like an answer to my question. State your name.
My name is Howard Huffman. I'm the general manager of the Water District. Okay. Holly, please ask your question again.
Thank you, Howard. I was told that the Turkey Peak project is currently under a cease and desist order.
So I don't know what a cease and desist order is. I can
Stop
tell
all progress,
So-
don't do any more bulldozing of
you,
anything.
we have stopped spending money except for the cultural resource work, which you really can't stop. You'll see that starting back up this spring, but we have stopped spending money on Turkey Peak until we can find a resolution to the Highway 4 problem.
Okay. Very quick question or clarification for Mr. Alcott. I need your help. I called and talked to Marcy a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. The letter that you put out said it was a paid political ad, and the hubbub started. It's a political ad. I knew it was a letter. Would you please, for the record, clarify that for the naysayers?
Yes, we actually had that discussion. I don't consider it a political ad, but I was advised it to be on the safe side. Some people might perceive it as a political ad, so you can get in trouble if you send out a political ad without disclosing it's a political ad. I felt pretty strongly that it should not even been on there because it should have been on the state seal, simply because all I was doing was sharing information with my constituents, and that's all I was doing. And I disagreed with that interpretation, but I deferred to people that have more experience with this than me. So I went, because I didn't want it to be perceived as a political.
I didn't take it that
Yeah.
way.
And so, yeah, it's a great question. We had a pretty lengthy discussion about it, and kind of, anyway.
Hey, I'm Dayla Wigley and I live on the lake. I have a copy in my hand of the project budget for Turkey Peak dated 2023. There's some verbiage in here that says a portion of Ward Mountain Road will be upgraded around the northern embankment of the new dam, and 0.75 miles of a new county road will be constructed to account for sections of FM4 and county roads that will be taken out of service. In the project budget, under construction, for $174 million, is that construction for the road included in that $174 million of this $200 million budget?
Yes, ma'am. Those sections of Ward Mountain Road described in that application are included in that budget.
How much? What's the line item of that $175 million for the road construction? The total construction budget is $174 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
We
How
estimate,
much is the road?
we estimate that that section described in there is a little less than $10 million. It is the most difficult part of Ward Mountain Road to rehab. It is also estimated that the balance of Ward Mountain Road, the sections not listed in there, cost about the same amount of money. The length is over 3 times as long, but the construction is much, much easier. This section of Ward Mountain Road described in that document, and everybody that's been on Ward Mountain Road, and Jeff that has maintained it for 18 years, knows that is an absolute horrible, horrible substructure. The amount of work we will have to do to bring that road back up to, by the way, Casey, you and I were supposed to meet at 6:30, but you were one busy feller when I got here. I'm gonna leave these right here for you, sir. 11-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders, built to a ASHTO 40-mile-an-hour standard. What is ASHTO? That is basically the same standards that TxDOT uses, verified by Engineer Salazar. The difference is, what you have now is a posted speed limit of 55 miles an hour in Highway 4. Does anybody drive 55 miles an hour on that section of road? Okay, this lady does. Which way are you going home? I'm going the other way. Volunteer, so TxDOT threw us this curveball. Yes, they did. Jeff alluded to that. He has been to every meeting since he started in 2008, and he knows the history. And TxDOT backed out on this. So my engineers have been instructed to pull, because you have to bear with me. Casey and I had a conversation late last night about getting old, and I'm getting there. Written by TxDOT. TxDOT agrees to pay for upgrading the original design concept to TxDOT standards, but the TxDOT funding is capped at the cost of the previously planned reconstruction of the existing section of FM4. Section 5, TxDOT agrees to the newly aligned FM4 in exchange for the existing section of FM4. Ballapena County agrees to exchange the new FM4 alignment right-of-way for the existing FM4 right-of-way. When Jeff talks about how agreements were in rooms and people had discussions, those words were exchanged. Now, TxDOT is backed out, okay? That is done. What also is in this memorandum of understanding is that the district agrees to pay for any and all costs associated with the design, engineering, the right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation for the project, and the district also agrees to pay for the construction cost of their original design concept. So the sections you see in the current meeting today, and the sections you see where the brush has been cleared, those sections have to be cleared. That part of Ward Mountain Road, we absolutely have to rebuild. First of all, we have to direct it up and over the new dam structure, and we have to fix that part going up the hill. Now, since TxDOT has backed out on us, I have instructed the engineers to pull the remaining engineering work. Judge, you got your glasses on? What's the date of those drawings right there? I'll save you the effort. It says 2019. The district did our part. Where it says the district is responsible for doing the engineering, we did our part. TxDOT did not. We did our part. The road is engineered. I have instructed my engineers to pull the remaining balance of Ward Mountain Road off the shelf and begin a full review of utilities. Things change over time. We want to make sure we fully understand every utility, water, bright speed, and electricity that exist on Ward Mountain Road, and that we have a plan as soon as we come to an understanding with TxDOT, assuming that happens, that we can implement that plan and begin redoing Ward Mountain Road immediately.
And how are you going to pay for it?
Man, we already have the funds.
You have spent $1 million, you've already spent almost $100 million.
No, ma'am, we have not spent $100 million.
97 million.
We have not spent $97 million.
How much have you spent?
Today, we spent about $30 million on this project.
Thank you.
The rest is sitting in the bank in Fort Worth.
Can you explain the bond sales process maybe just briefly?
Yes, okay, so bond sales, this is called a SWIFT fund. This application process is used for large capital projects in the state of Texas by the Texas Water Development Board. This process, from the time you fill out your initial PIF, which is your initial application, to the time you get funded, is approximately 12 months. So we filled out this application assuming a bad assumption. Casey and I had this discussion last night. A bad assumption to trust a state agency to keep their word. When we filled out this application for construction funds, TxDOT was still telling us you need an appraisal, you need a survey, there's things you need to do, and we were doing those things. And under that assumption, and under this MOU that TxDOT provided to us, we continued trucking forward with this project. Keeping in mind, we did our part. The engineering is sitting on the shelf ready to go. We've identified utilities. That always has to be looked at before you start again. But we did what the MOU said the district needed to do in order to move this project forward. I'll be right back to you, ma'am, I promise. So the bond process, thank you, Marcy, for bringing this up. When they sell bonds, you sign your financing agreement in early summer, early to mid-summer. That is when you are locked in 100% with the Texas Water Development Board. That's because the Texas Water Development Board has to spool up SRF, SWIFT, and several other different types of funding mechanisms that they use. And then they take that and they have a meeting with TxDOT, and they have a meeting with DPS and TCEQ and every other state agency, and the state bundles all of this money together. And then the state goes to New York and they sell bonds. So the benefit to the ratepayers is that the ratepayers, by using Texas Water Development Board, get to use the state's excellent credit. So we get a much better interest rate on these bond sales than if we went to the open market. The bad thing about that, this is government. I believe Representative Alcott's going to work on some of this. Government is slow. Like I said, it takes a year from the time you fill out an application till the time you get money in the bank. So it's not like you wake up and you say, man, we need to go do this tomorrow, and you can go to Water Development Board and get money. You have to be planning at least a year out in advance of when you think you're going to need this money. So we filled out our application for construction in anticipation of beginning construction in 2025. The funding hit our bank account in late November of 24, right when we planned it to be. But you just can't go get money from the Water Development Board. You just can't go sell bonds on a whim. This takes at least 12 months of planning. So we did not take $200 million. We did not commit to $200 million. We are approved up to $200 million. Our first tranche was $60 million. That is the money that the engineers estimated we needed to get us through calendar year 2025.
Or what scope of the work?
The first scope of the work, absolutely, is you have to get the bridges.
No, it was supposed to be Ward Mountain Road.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
bear with me. The bridges that connect South Lakeview to North Lakeview, the new county road that cuts across the Palo Vista property, connecting Lakeview back to FM4, and Ward Mountain Road, the section she described. Now that TxDOT has officially put their foot down and backed out, as I said, I've instructed the engineers to pull the remaining sections off the shelf and get the utility team working on identifying utilities, making sure that plan is ready to implement as soon as possible. We have met with Texas Water Development Board, and Representative Alcott, I don't want to go against what you said, but you said Texas Water Development Board notified you this was uncommon about the money. No, that's not uncommon. Matter of fact, the Water Development Board told us every large project they have on the books now, the original budget probably wasn't right, and they've all come back to get more money to finish it. Case in point, you ask how do we get to this point, not having FM4 nailed down. Ralph Hall Lake, that's a Tarrant Regional project, went back and got more money this year. Well, guess what that money was for? And you can find this on their website. They had to go they're still working on land acquisition and easements to build their big pipeline to bring water back into Fort Worth. So this is not, Texas Water Development Board's threshold is that you're substantially complete with land acquisition to start construction. That is their threshold. We never lied to them. They knew there was about 20 acres of property left to be bought, and they knew we weren't done dealing with TxDOT yet. But still, those 30 acres out of 1,000, that meets their threshold of being substantially complete with land acquisition. I believe she in the back was first. Right to you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe handshake deals were good when Norman here was a young man, but
As residents here, we don't really care who to be mad at. We want our problems solved.
Well, we made about 146%. That's
start a project, you have every single resource locked down.
Yep.
And
Yes.
then you go do the project.
Sir, that is not correct.
Oh.
Like I just told you, Ralph Hall just borrowed more money to go buy more land.
Pretty lengthy discussion about it, and kind of, anyway.
Hey, I'm Ayla Wigley and I live on the lake. I have a copy in my hand of the project budget for Turkey Peak dated 2023. There's some verbiage in here that says a portion of Ward Mountain Road will be upgraded around the northern embankment of the new dam, and 0.75 miles of a new county road will be constructed to account for sections of FM4 and county roads that will be taken out of service. In the project budget, under construction, for $174 million, is that construction for the road included in that $174 million of this $200 million budget?
Yes, ma'am. Those sections of Ward Mountain Road described in that application are included in that budget.
How much? What's the line item of that $175 million for the road construction? The total construction budget is $174 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
We
How
estimate,
much is the road?
we estimate that section described in there is a little less than $10 million. It is the most difficult part of Ward Mountain Road to rehab. It is also estimated that the balance of Ward Mountain Road, the sections not listed in there, cost about the same amount of money. The length is over 3 times as long, but the construction is much, much easier. This section of Ward Mountain Road described in that document, and everybody that's been on Ward Mountain Road, and Jeff that has maintained it for 18 years, knows that is an absolute horrible substructure. The amount of work we will have to do to bring that road back up to, by the way, Casey, you and I were supposed to meet at 6:30, but you were one busy feller when I got here. I'm gonna leave these right here for you, sir. 11-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders, built to a ASHTO 40-mile-an-hour standard. What is ASHTO? That is basically the same standards that TxDOT uses, verified by Engineer Salazar. The difference is, what you have now is a posted speed limit of 55 mile an hour in Highway 4. Does anybody drive 55 mile an hour on that section of road? Okay, this lady does. Which way are you going home? I'm going the other way. So, TxDOT threw us this curveball. Yes, they did. Jeff alluded to that. He has been to every meeting since he started in 2008, and he knows the history. And TxDOT backed out on this. So, my engineers have been instructed to pull, because, you have to bear with me, Casey and I had a conversation late last night about getting old, and I'm getting there. Written by TxDOT. TxDOT agrees to pay for upgrading the original design concept to TxDOT standards, but the TxDOT funding is capped at the cost of the previously planned reconstruction of the existing section of FM4. Section 5, TxDOT agrees to the newly aligned FM4 in exchange for the existing section of FM4. Palapena County agrees to exchange the new FM4 alignment right-of-way for the existing FM4 right-of-way. When Jeff talks about how agreements were in rooms and people had discussions, those words were exchanged. Now, TxDOT is back down, okay? That is done. What also is in this memorandum of understanding is that the district agrees to pay for any and all costs associated with the design, engineering, the right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation for the project, and the district also agrees to pay for the construction cost of their original design concept. So the sections you see in the current bidding today, and the sections you see where the brush has been cleared, those sections have to be cleared. That part of Ward Mountain Road, we absolutely have to rebuild. First of all, we have to direct it up and over the new dam structure, and we have to fix that part going up the hill. Now, since TxDOT has backed out on us, I have instructed the engineers to pull the remaining engineering work. Judge, you got your glasses on? What's the date of those drawings right there? I'll save you the effort. It says 2019. The district did our part. Where it says the district is responsible for doing the engineering, we did our part. TxDOT did not. We did our part. The road is engineered. I have instructed my engineers to pull the remaining balance of Ward Mountain Road off the shelf and begin a full review of utilities. Things change over time. We want to make sure we fully understand every utility, water, bright speed, and electricity that exist on Ward Mountain Road, and that we have a plan as soon as we come to an understanding with TxDOT, assuming that happens, that we can implement that plan and begin redoing Ward Mountain Road immediately.
How are you gonna pay for it?
Man, we already have the funds.
You have $7 million, you already spent almost $100 million.
No, ma'am, we have not spent $100 million.
97 million.
We have not spent $97 million.
How much have you spent?
To date, we spent about $30 million on this project. The rest is sitting in the bank in Fort Worth.
Can you explain the bond sales process maybe just briefly?
Yes, okay, so bond sales, this is called a SWIFT fund. This application process is used for large capital projects in the state of Texas by the Texas Water Development Board. This process, from the time you fill out your initial PIF, which is your initial application, till the time you get funded, is approximately 12 months. So we filled out this application assuming a bad assumption. Casey and I had this discussion last night. A bad assumption to trust the state agency to keep their word. When we filled out this application for construction funds, TxDOT was still telling us you need an appraisal, you need a survey, there's things you need to do, and we were doing those things. And under that assumption, and under this MOU that TxDOT provided to us, we continued trucking forward with this project. Keeping in mind, we did our part. The engineering is sitting on the shelf ready to go. We've identified the utilities. That always has to be looked at before you start again. But we did what the MOU said the district needed to do in order to move this project forward. I'll be right back to you, ma'am, I promise. So the bond process, thank you, Marcy, for bringing this up. When they sell bonds, you sign your financing agreement in early to mid-summer. That is when you are locked in 100% with the Texas Water Development Board. That's because the Texas Water Development Board has to spool up SRF, SWIFT, and several other different types of funding mechanisms that they use. And then they take that and they have a meeting with TxDOT, and they have a meeting with DPS and TCEQ and every other state agency, and the state bundles all of this money together. And then the state goes to New York and they sell bonds. So the benefit to the ratepayers is that the ratepayers, by using Texas Water Development Board, get to use the state's excellent credit. So we get a much better interest rate on these bond sales than if we went to the open market. The bad thing about that, this is government. I believe Representative Alcott's going to work on some of this. Government is slow. Like I said, it takes a year from the time you fill out an application till the time you get money in the bank. So it's not like you wake up and you say, man, we need to go do this tomorrow, and you can go to Water Development Board and get money. You have to be planning at least a year out in advance of when you think you're going to need this money. So we filled out our application for construction in anticipation of beginning construction in 2025. The funding hit our bank account in late November of '24, right when we planned it to be. But you just can't go get money from the Water Development Board. You just can't go sell bonds on a whim. This takes at least 12 months of planning. So we did not take $200 million. We did not commit to $200 million. We are approved up to $200 million. Our first tranche was $60 million. That is the money that the engineers estimated we needed to get us through calendar year 2025.
For what scope of the work?
The first scope of the work, absolutely, is you have to get the bridges.
No, it was supposed to be Ward Mountain Road.
Ma'am, bear with me. The bridges that connect South Lakeview to North Lakeview, the new county road that cuts across the Palo Vista property, connecting Lakeview back to FM4, and Ward Mountain Road, the section she described. Now that TxDOT has officially put their foot down and backed out, as I said, I've instructed the engineers to pull the remaining sections off the shelf and get the utility team working on identifying utilities, making sure that plan is ready to implement as soon as possible. We have met with Texas Water Development Board, and Representative Alcott, I don't want to go against what you said, but you said Texas Water Development Board notified you this was uncommon about the money. Though that's not uncommon. Matter of fact, the Water Development Board told us every large project they have on the books now, the original budget probably wasn't right, and they've all come back to get more money to finish it. Case in point, you ask, how do we get to this point, not having FM4 nailed down? Ralph Hall Lake, that's a Tarrant Regional project, went back and got more money this year. Well, guess what that money was for? And you can find this on their website. They had to go they're still working on land acquisition and easements to build their big pipeline to bring water back into Fort Worth. So this is not, Texas Water Development Board's threshold is that you're substantially complete with land acquisition to start construction. That is their threshold. We never lied to them. They knew there was about 20 acres of property left to be bought, and they knew we weren't done dealing with TxDOT yet. But still, those 30 acres out of 1,000, that meets their threshold of being substantially complete with land acquisition. I believe she in the back was first. Yeah, right to you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe handshake deals were good when Norman here was a young man, but I work for Santo School and we get MOUs all the time, and they are not worth the paper they're written on unless they're signed and returned.
That is true. But ma'am, can I say this?
Yes.
Why are we mad at TxDOT? They also, there was things TxDOT was supposed to do.
As residents here, we don't really care who to be mad at. We want our problems solved.
That's what we're not mad at.
Before you start a project, you have every single resource locked down.
Yep.
And then you go do the project.
Sir, that is not correct. Like I just told you, Ralph Hall just borrowed more money to go buy more land.
So take the $30 million that's still left in that Fort Worth bank, pay it back so that we are no longer paying interest on that money. And then when you get TxDOT secured in writing, then go back and get that.
So, sir,
Maybe it takes another 12 months.
since we piggybacked off the state's good credit rating, the bond covenant says you have to hold those bonds for 10 years. That's the rules when you borrow money with
Holding
the
the bond
state.
and holding that money in the bank are two different things.
Sir, we can't pay back the bonds because we have to hold the bonds active for 10 years. You can't pay them off. Not for 10 years, minimum.
So you,
That's a typical
So
bond
you took
covenant,
the-
borrowing money
you took the
from the
money
state.
without the ability to complete a taxpayer project. That's why we're so frustrated.
Okay.
Again, It's a government not functioning like a business. We're talking about DOTs, talking about Trump, however you want to look at it. This is just another example.
And nobody's talking about everybody's talking about Mineral Wells, but all those costs are passed on to Santo Water and everybody else that buys water from Mineral Wells. We got rate increases too.
Yeah, we did. So my question is, if TxDOT takes 7 years to build a road, right? This should have been negotiated by 2014 or whatever, the year 2015, if you all knew you wanted to break ground. And so that's where I'm going, I don't know, something's not adding up. Because if TxDOT says, we all know it takes 7 years, we've learned this, then that, as a project manager, you would think, maybe we really should get this in writing and make sure they're starting to work on this road, because this is when we're planning to break ground on the stuff we really want to get to.
Yes, ma'am. Loyal Bustle, October 22nd, 2016, 4:36 p.m. Dear Ken, Ken at the time was the project manager at HDR over this project. Attached is a rough draft of the MOU. We can discuss any comments and adjust the wording as necessary at the next meeting. Linda is working to find a date and time in November. Thank you, Loyal. Ma'am.
It's not signed, it doesn't matter.
That is true, ma'am.
You want to read, it doesn't matter. You have nothing to
And that is the impasse that we're trying to work on now. So,
All retired 2020.
Ask a question?
We've had 2 more engineers since then.
Respectfully, Mr. Huffman?
absolutely, Mr. Jones.
Why did you tell the Corps of Engineers and the Texas Water Development Board that the Brazos Electric Power Corporation, the largest use for this Turkey Peak, is 4,000 acre feet?
Because at that time, Brazos Electric was reserving the right to hold on to 4,000 acre foot of water.
Why did you not update the Texas Water Development Board for the loan that was only 1,000 acre feet of contract, and they only actually use about 400? Why didn't you update the loan?
So, that is a good question, Mr. Jones. I took some notes while you spoke earlier, and you are owed an answer. Absolutely.
How about now?
Well, how about now? Did the Water District inform the state of Texas, Texas Water Development Board, that you told them 4,000 acre feet, and it's only 1,000, so you only use about 400. Did you ever update the person that's loaning you money that 977 million gallons of water based on this project is not going to be, you don't need it?
Mr. Jones, I'm going to have to look into that for you.
Wow.
Have your information, and I will get you.
Okay, last question. Do you know what, with all due respect, do you know why everybody's upset in here? Because I and a lot of people have talked with the city council, and I talked to a joint meeting of the city council and the water board, and I submitted my questions in writing almost 3 years ago. You have had no town halls. You won't answer questions. Excuse me. You flat out won't answer. So the anchor in the room is you're not accountable to your constituents in the water district. You don't have any answers. And my last question is, $170 million for the construction project, that's 2013 numbers, right?
No, sir.
2016? What are the 2025 construction costs?
Those construction costs on that application are late 2023 OPCCs.
Okay.
Opinion of probable construction cost.
Okay. Last question, they mentioned the water plant, right? That's the city
Yes.
put that into a different fund to fund it. They asked for $72 million. The last water plant that was constructed and built in the state of Texas, Pearland, Texas, only 10 MPGs, only 10. Hilltops at 16. Okay? There's a sign out front that says 16 million gallons per day. You know what the Pearland construction, the budget was for only a 10? You know that?
No, sir.
It's 14.7 million per one MPG.
Okay, what type of-
147. My point is, if you do a 16 million
Sir, you cannot
out there, you're only going to update it. It's 235 million. My question is this: do you honestly think that you're going to upgrade that plant for 70 million?
Absolutely, because you cannot compare Pearland's water to our water.
Okay.
Our treatment costs are almost nil when it comes to the chemicals it takes to treat the water.
Okay, that's fair.
Because of the Lake Palopenas watershed is relatively clean. We release the water down the creek, which also helps polish the water up. We put it into a pre-sedimentation reservoir for 60 days, which helps the water get polished up again, cleaner and cleaner each time. Matter of fact, the operators at Hilltop Water Treatment Plant complain that the source water coming into the plant is almost too clean. In other words, when you add chemicals, coagulants, to drop it. No. Now listen to me.
My question is why don't you go back to the person that gave you $200 million and tell them you didn't tell them that $977 million, you forgot to tell them on the loan application that you're not going to use 3,000 acre feet, and that wholesalers are not using near what their contracts are.
But sir, okay, now here's the false image that you have with these contracts. It doesn't matter what these wholesalers purchase. If a wholesaler has 11 million gallons a month leased through a legal document, the city and the district are legally obligated to have the capacity in place to produce that water. They could have 1 million gallons a day contracted and only buy 2 gallons. That's really shame on us for signing a contract is to not make them buy more water. If there's a contract for water, that bucket of water has to go into the total sum, and the capacity of the system has to be able to support the sale of every gallon contracted.
I have a question.
But the power plant did have a reserved right to that water. But they
question
later
here.
came back and said, we don't want that, and then they went bankrupt.
Okay, right here.
Sir.
I got a question. Okay, those specifications you were talking about earlier, I think you said 2016 was the year on the document you were reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were there any specifications for this project earlier than that? Like, did it start back in 2000 or 2002?
So when you say specifications,
Well, the blueprints, the drawing, the concept of even building the lake. When did all that start, is what I'm trying to understand.
there is a lot of
I'm not talking about rumors and all that. I'm talking about real documentation.
real documentation. The district, for the first time, borrowed money from the Texas Water Development Board for the sole purpose of the Turkey Peak Reservoir in 2008. The first time we borrowed money specifically.
2008, that's what I was wondering about. So my next question is, and then I'll turn the mic over. Have you had any public meetings like this to inform everybody? No. Any public meetings to?
No, sir, we haven't.
Well,
it is a problem, Mr. Jones.
You wouldn't be having all this if you had
No
that.
leadership. People want transparency. Amen. There's no transparency. You just stare at people and look at them and you never answer their questions.
Mr. Jones, every question you've ever asked me has been answered.
No, that's not true. I stood waiting for an answer from the city that did 2 years ago.
Mr. Jones, every question you have asked me has been answered.
And you called me up and threatened me.
Okay.
I got a report,
I remember that conversation, Mr. Jones. You weren't very pleasant yourself. Yes, good question.
Yes, sir.
Donnie, can you bring my bottle of water?
We're about to wrap this up.
Somebody get Mr. Huffman some water.
Thank you.
So I had a question. So I have a question for Mr. Huffman. You may have heard me mention this. Mentioned this earlier, is that one of my concerns are the people that are paying for this 146% increase, because it's my understanding that rate increase is for a $200 million loan outstanding, but right now it's only like $97 million. I'm just going to ask you here, would you support reducing that water rate? I know that's not your decision, but you obviously have a tremendous amount of influence in the city council. Would you support lowering that tax rate
to the level that is sufficient to cover the existing $97 million, just to provide some relief. So, because it's possible that this thing doesn't go through, then where's that money gonna go? But more importantly, I mean, if you do take that $200 million, you can raise it back up. But would you support lowering the tax rate to a level that's sufficient to cover the existing loan?
Okay, so I don't believe it's a tax rate.
Water rate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
My mistake, water rate.
Nothing like a pass.
I'm a little biased. I cannot speak for the public, but I do not mind my water bill because I know.
So, Mr. Huffman, let me tell you one reason. That's what my job is to do. And I talked to the masses when I was knocking doors. And I saw, I'll just give you an example of one story. I knocked on a door, it was like a Wednesday night around 7 p.m. It was dark, knocked on this lady's door, she came to the door. You could tell it was not a very expensive house at all, maybe worth $70,000, $80,000. And she came to me and she told me that she was, in her, and I don't know, it's a small town, so maybe I shouldn't tell her profession, but basically she had a profession where she had clients come in to her office every day, mostly women, and she said that people that were coming in weren't talking about immigration, they weren't talking about Trump, they weren't talking about Biden. The only thing they wanted to talk about was how are they going to pay for their water. And I met these other people too at the door, and I came to say, well, what do you feel about your property taxes? How do you feel about the border? And all they wanted to talk about in Mineral Wells, in the city of Mineral Wells, was how was I going to pay for my water bill? So it's my job to speak for the masses. I feel for these people, and I understand you have to raise the water rate, not taxes, but the water rate to help pay for that loan. But right now, they are grossly overpaying because that loan, it's not a $200 million loan. And so all I'm asking is, would you can you help provide a little relief for these people that are just drowning and just trying to pay their water bill? I know that you said you don't mind paying yours, but I can promise you there's a lot of people in Mineral Wells that do. They're not as fortunate as you.
I believe what I've heard you ask me is to use my relationship with the city council and encourage them to reevaluate this situation.
Exactly, yes, sir.
Along with my board.
Yes, sir.
And yes, ma'am, I believe that was inferred. And we also probably need to include 7 wholesalers who are also, okay. Then that is an easy commitment to make to you, that I will do everything that I can to work with the council and the board and the 7 wholesalers to reevaluate this situation. Will you commit to making TxDOT live up to their commitments to this project and giving us highway 4?
Actually, and I'm glad you did, because I had a second question, but I was so happy with your answer to the first, I wasn't going to go there. So at the Republican Women's Meeting, when I heard you say that TxDOT had gone back on their word, and then I talked to TxDOT, and they said there never was that word, at least the 2 years that our current regional engineer, Salazar, said there's obviously, you agree there's no written, right? No written one. And he claimed to me, as long as I've been, this was his words, as long as I've been here the last 2 years, we've never had a verbal agreement. But yet you said that he went back on his word, and he was shocked to hear that. And then when I reported that in my letter, I think it was in maybe the Weatherford Democrat or somewhere else, you claimed that you never said that. But now you're saying it again, that they're going back on their word. And that's but maybe the bigger picture, and some people have already addressed this, is the fact that before you take out a $200 million loan, a project this big, how do you even if you had been given a verbal agreement, do you consider it responsible and even logical to actually go forward with no written, as the teacher from Santo said, without a written memorandum of understanding? That's so shocking. So I have been in touch with the TxDOT about every 3 weeks since we met, And they want to work with you. They want to work out a deal, but they need a reasonable offer to make this happen. Now, whether you can provide that reasonable offer, I don't know. And I do know that the lobbyist that the city of Mineral Wells is working to try to get some,
Okay.
understanding, but that's, there's really not much I can do. I brought you all together. There's nothing, I can't go to TxDOT and say, I think you should accept the offer of $500,000 for 3.4 million or 3.4 miles of road. I'm not going to do that because that doesn't sound reasonable to me. But it's not really my job to do that. It's your job to do that.
So, Representative Alcott, if you would have read the full appraisal, and keep in mind, when you do an appraisal for TxDOT, you have to use an appraiser that has been pre-approved by TxDOT. And there is a set of procedures that TxDOT demands that these appraisals use. The actual appraised value of the 3.4 miles was just under $3 million. But using TxDOT's own rules, the value of that 3.4 miles was downgraded due to lack of maintenance by TxDOT to just under $500,000. And that is the basis of our offer to TxDOT, was the value of the road sitting on the ground now. Now, when TxDOT wrote that letter, and I wrote it, and I didn't expect anything different coming out of Mr. Salazar. He has a job to do, and he's doing it. And TxDOT should be proud, because he's sticking to his guns. But when TxDOT says we want you to pay for the road, but then you're also going to need to add in money for the upgrades. Well, somebody put that analogy to me today. That's like if you sold your home, okay, and the person buying your home, but then you come back and you say, you know what, I know you're buying my home, but you're also going to pay to build my new house. Well,
That's not
I don't think that's what TxDOT's asking. They're not expecting you to offer them $170 million. And according to Mr. Salazar, Mr. Huffman, according to Mr. Salazar, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but according to him, that the people that you used to appraise, that you did it in the wrong way. You were appraising only the land as if there was no road there. Is that not true?
Correct.
So the appraisals used a procedure defined by TxDOT. If Mr. Salazar doesn't like that, I don't know what to do for that, Representative Alcott. We used an appraiser approved by TxDOT to do appraisals for TxDOT. And so if Mr. Salazar doesn't like that, I don't know what to do about that. We followed their instructions. Use an appraiser approved by TxDOT. And like I said, the value, the top dollar value was just under $3 million. But then it got downgraded because of lack of shoulders, lack of maintenance, and a lot of other things, that the road surface is just only worth $500,000 now. And that is using TxDOT's approved appraisers and their procedures. And I can't answer to that practice because I'm not an appraiser. I can just say we did what TxDOT asked us to do using people they asked us to use.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming up and taking questions. And Casey's asked me to post
here
things
all
up.
night, so.
And yeah, you're welcome to stay around and asking questions. You're welcome to ask me questions. I think it's Judge Long still here. I'm sure he's willing. And thank you, Commissioner Fryer, for coming out. I wanted to also mention that if any of y'all want to receive my capital update emails that I send out, I try to do it once a week. I'm not real good at it. If I do get any updates with the water issue, I will be included in there, but I'm not going to try to falsely advertise. It's not, the purpose of these capital updates is just what's going on with the capital, what bills I'm introducing, what major legislation's on the docket. If you're interested in getting that information, there's some people outside if you want to sign up for those. But I think all of us are going to be around to answer any questions, but I think it's getting late. I think people.
You're very good to follow on Twitter, on X.
Well,
you are. You put a lot of good stuff on.
Yeah, but I stink at social media.
No,
But
you don't.
yeah.
You're
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I think it's something like @Alcott for Texas with the number 4. But
Representative Alcott, if I may, to the crowd, your representatives are working very hard to find a reasonable solution to this project. The senator and the representative both recognize that water is a critical issue, And they are working hard, and we appreciate your help. We appreciate you coming tonight. We appreciate you setting up the meeting in Austin and everything you've done behind the scenes and everything you're going to be doing behind the scenes. So it's much appreciated, although we may not see the eye on 100%. I doubt you have anybody that you know that agrees with you 100% of the time. But we do thank you, and we thank Senator King for their continued support and helping find a reasonable solution to this problem.
Thank you, Casey, for putting this together.
Yes, thank you.
We could probably do this for 3 days. I appreciate all of you coming. I appreciate the questions.
Are you where I can get
Everybody
on you sometime?
answering the questions.
Because I got my sister.
Till next time, thanks again.
Jenna didn't come, hey.
Who didn't come?
Jenna, I said she didn't come.
Well, I don't know.
No, I was just curious. I was like,
Well, just getting here?
No, I got here a little while ago. It wasn't because of my ride share. No, I'm Kim McGee.
Okay. Sorry.
I just
You look familiar.
I live in Lawrence.
How'd you think that went? Okay.
Used to live in Mineral Wells, but I've never liked it. I got here in 10 years.
Well, it gets underhanded. You know, nobody's disputing we need water.
No.
But, see, I don't understand. I was looking up, I don't know why they don't have a pipeline.
I don't know why we're showing water to other people for ourselves.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I wanted to say that, but then I'm so wrong. Why? Because I have family members that are paying this outrageous water bills.
They're wasting. We've got videos all over. They are pushing there's no reason why they should be wasting their money. Not the same here, too. Yeah, feel free to give me a call.
I'll text you or something that way you know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just want to be able to see if we can see this aired somewhere.
yeah, if they'll let me, usually I'll do it live if they didn't want to do it live.
Should we have some more that you put it on my phone?
Yeah, they'll let me do that.
Okay, I'll check my name.
Okay, yeah, feel free to give me a call or shoot.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute, what was your name again?
Kim McGee.
Kim McGee, good to meet you.
guess anybody, really anybody, trust but verify. Trust but verify. Yeah. But the thing is, there's no way somebody. Yeah. It's not just one. I don't know. There's a bunch of people saying that they had problems with it was wrong. I'm recommending an electric company. They're all smart meters. Well, yeah, electric. Exactly. What if it's only $10? What if they're only charging the election above? What if they're only charging the CMR? Everybody's starting.
I can tell you some secrets about what they're charging.
Water is the same way. Yeah. Do you get a refund? No, you're not getting a refund. But look, I have every. I forget what electric I have. Reliance. I have Reliance. They send me on weekends.
You're late.
So I don't have to wait till the end of the month. I don't pay attention to every phone. But I get a week.
I just didn't know what was up.
I can actually, yeah, so I know that day to day I spend $10 on electric. Maybe you have a really hot sound.
Oh, just getting ready to go. Oh, well, I see that's what I heard it was too.
That's good.
Well, I've just been sitting on my porch. And we was blowing. Oh, man.
But it was $200 out there. So I'll check back. Who was that for a long time ago? Somebody put out a little video about the quality of the water. No, I thought that was you. And then when he said, the water from Colorado.
Oh, they get this. Isn't what they've been telling us all these days. Yeah. I remember Sullivan Cole's always saying, oh yeah, the water's pretty dirty up there, that's that, And I'm like, what about all those trimethylenes that they keep
Do you know, Terry, I did a point at the dam, hilltop. You took the sample? No, I took the distance. I'm switching topics. You know how far it is as the crow flies?
It's supposed to be like 26 miles.
10 miles.
26 on the channel.
Yeah, I have it. I got it, but I'm going to have to slice it together. That's not a big deal. This, I started really down. So,
and they're saying cruise and that's where it picks up all the crap. It's all livestock, and everything in there. That's one of the biggest problems. Is that's why the creek is so much water. Because livestock has been down there, roosted out with the wolves or whatever.
I was hoping for that.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's a new one on me. Oh, I don't even watch that. Not good. I was keeping it friends, like friends. Anyway, I got home by the time I got home. I was on my couch, crying and feeling. My sister called me like the other day, and I just called up and I was like, what's wrong with you?
No, I have everything in fact what I did whenever that would be a day.
And then he said, they called me saying, George, I said, sure. So I got do all that shit out of me, and so anyway, like I said, for 3 days ago, the officer calls me, what did you do? I don't know. The train was like a stand. But I didn't even get in the water. I didn't even get in the water.
See, that just goes to show you. For somebody to say, the water is so quality, that our treatment plant doesn't really even need to treat
it's just so clean.
But it's straight.
as it as a road, the stream.
Now, the stream might be 20, because if you follow it this on the map, it does. I mean, it can definitely be done. And look, that's not taking everything out of my life. But if you just Google how much it costs on the gas,
Oh, it's nowhere near.
it's like 20 to 50.
I was reading today about the conveyor belt that they put out in Texas. Okay, all the sand for all the fracking. It's like the biggest one in the world. It's like in Texas now. Anyway, I thought it was really fun. If they could do this conveyor belt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, I'm like, look, you could go, there's some roads that you can do, even if you go through pastures, it doesn't matter.
Well, heck,
Even if you say, so I said 10 and 20, that's $200. You just start doing the math. You're talking, yeah, you're talking, even paying easements and things like that, even if you got to pay some royalties, it doesn't matter. We're talking about all the high-end, $40 million.
And that's straight water, no loss.
No loss, straight from point A.
And you don't have all the contaminants like jumping into it.
But if you look at that creek bed, I mean, you're losing a ton of
It's only like, what, 3 feet deep? If it's bad in those places now. It used to say it was 10 feet deep and 30 foot wide when it started, and now it's like, anyway, it's the opposite. It's about this one.
Every creek is going to be like, we live on the mountain. And it's just, rocky.
Well, the water's just
and
the
then you
roads.
have a pool. So that's where you go swimming. But this one, it's not just one big hole. It's not like this big lake.
It's the same way going down the river, from Peak
Okay, I understand everything. So, hey, the 30 million that's still left in that Fort Worth bank, pay it back so that we are no longer paying interest on that money. And then when you get TxDOT secure in writing, then